Hello, I'm Tara Ruckman.
And I'm Stephanie Howe, and we are Control the Chaos EDU. Are you burnout? Are you feeling frustrated or overwhelmed?
Or maybe it's the opposite, and you're a go-getter and want to level up. Then it's time to dive in with real talk and solution-focused conversations. Hello, and welcome to Control the Chaos EDU. And we are here with another guest this morning. We're super excited from McGraw-Hill. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Rob Sperenberg. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for All Things Media, which is the company that's working with McGraw-Hill to bring augmented reality to the classroom. Actually, McGraw-Hill and Verizon.
Oh, partners. Yeah. I wasn't aware that you're partners there.
Yeah. So McGraw-Hill and Verizon have teamed up to do this kind of Classroom of the Future initiative. Verizon's actually been at it for quite a while. They have a innovation portal at verizon.com/learning, where you can get all kinds of free materials and emerging technology for the classroom. And then McGraw-Hill has now partnered up with them and is offering a free augmented reality application for teaching right now mathematics in the classroom. But ultimately, the application is going to host a variety of different augmented reality experiences for different disciplines.
And I love that you guys are starting with math, because a lot of math teachers are like, it's hard to use technology. Like, they always think it's so hard because paper and pencil. Like, they want the kids to solve the problem, write it out. So I think it's really cool that you kind of started with math and using some of those concepts.
Yeah, it's funny. It didn't seem at first like mathematics was going to be a logical fit for augmented reality. I remember when the project was first proposed, I was like, really, math? But the more we've dug into it, it's actually a really logical place for augmented reality. It's a really logical pairing because mathematics, people think it's just pencil and paper and equations, right? And that's all it is. You learn the steps and you learn how to do it. But the reality is, to truly understand mathematics, there's a lot of abstract mental constructs that you need. There's a lot of abstract processes that you have to go through and mental maps you have to create to solve these problems, not just by doing the steps, but to truly understand why you're solving them and what it means. Specifically, certainly in geometry, but really in a lot of different disciplines in mathematics. So augmented reality ended up being a perfect fit, because what we're really doing is giving kids a way to kind of jumpstart that mental picture in their mind that they need to truly understand what the math is all about. And then working with McGraw, we've taken it a step further in that we're not only creating something that helps them solve problems and pass the test. We've used augmented reality to take those mathematics and the math that we're teaching and bring it into the real world, make it applicable in a way in the real world. So a great example of that would be there's a cross-sections activity, right? And so every kid in probably 6th or 7th grade has to learn about cross-sections, which is really taking 3D objects, and if you slice it, what kind of cross-section or shape do you create when you slice it? And so we could have just gone through, and a lot of times when they teach it in the classroom, they'll do like a Play-Doh model of a shape, and they'll cut it with a knife and say, look at the cross-section. But that, and that teaches you how to pass the test, but it doesn't really teach you about how to kind of see that in the real world. And so in the McGraw-Hill application, while we introduce a cylinder, that cylinder is a battery, and you cut it to see the cross-section. Or if it's a pyramid, it's like the Pyramid of Giza. And so using AR, we're able to make those cross-section activities applicable to real-world instances. And then later, when kids walk out into the real world, there's one where you cut a cereal box. I guarantee you, the next time that kid eats cereal, they're going to look at that box and say, well, if I were to cut it this way, I'm going to get, a rectangle. And that's really, it seems like a simple thing, but it's a really important thing. Because that's the fundamental building block of that kind of critical thinking that is the foundation of mathematics, it's the foundation of engineering, it's the foundation of so many disciplines. So to be able to take something that seems really abstract and to take something like math and instantly help the child to understand it, to pass the test, and to use it in the real world has been a real rewarding experience. And it's something that that we kind of happened upon during the ideation process and development process that now we're carrying across to all of the activities. It's become another. Originally, the goal was like, let's just help them pass the test and understand it.
Yeah.
And now we've added that extra hurdle of let's help them pass, understand it, pass the test, and apply it in the real world.
Yeah.
You had a fun story about your daughter that you started telling us. Can you tell us the story about how your daughter and you were working with some of this?
Oh yeah, so it's funny. I was walking through my kitchen, and she was doing some homework at the kitchen table, and I looked over her shoulder and I saw she was doing cross sections. And I was like, hey, we're doing a whole thing on cross sections.
Yeah.
And so I gave her the app, and she picked it up and she played with it, and she went through the quiz. She aced the quiz at the end. And it was just a real rewarding experience as a father to see it, in being used, not only by a child but my own daughter. It's that's something that as a developer, every now and then you get, you more often than not you develop a product, and you'll do focus groups and you'll do testing. But once it goes out into the world, you don't really see, as a developer, you don't really see what happens to it. It's like you send your kid off to college and they never call, And
I hope that doesn't happen. My daughter's about to go to college.
Mine too. She leaves in August for college. So it felt a little bit like that with a lot of our products, but to actually just happen to have that moment where it's like, hey, you're doing this, I'm doing this, and to kind of link up with her, it reminds us why we do it, and it's good that I actually have a seventh, rising eighth grader in the house, because it gives me somebody to bounce these things off of.
I love it. I love this student input, right? But
yeah.
right within your own house. You don't even have to go to school for that.
And brutally honest too, like kids in focus groups might not tell you the truth, but my daughter will shut me down every time. So
that's probably some of the best feedback you could get is from a teenage girl.
Yeah, you impress your teenager, you're doing something right.
And it's so true with that transferring knowledge. A lot of our students struggle with taking a concept that they've learned in school and transferring it.
It's one of the biggest complaints that you hear from any student. It's like, when am I ever going to need this? And I remember saying that when I took math in high school, and then I became a game programmer. Like 5 years later, and then I was like, oh, why didn't I pay attention? Why didn't I focus more and retain more of that information? Because I ended up using it a lot. And I feel like there's it always seems like you're never going to use, when you're a kid, it seems like, when am I going to need this? But the funny thing is, you never know where it's going to go, right? You can only, I think Steve Jobs once said, you can only connect the dots looking back. You can't connect them looking forward. And I think that, kids never understand that you never know where it's going to go. You think you're not going to need this, but then you become a game programmer, and now you need it.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah, I think I need to tell that story to my son, because he recently got a D, and I was like, Bryce, what are you doing? Like, you can't. And he was like, but Mom, I'm never going to need this. He's like, I'm putting my energies into HVAC and we're building models. I'm like, nah, Mom, I'm never going to need this. So that, like the whole virtual reality thing, thinking about the math that could be learned there and that augmented reality, he would be bringing those concepts to real life, right? Like,
yeah, and in all fairness, he said he's building models for HVAC.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to need math.
Yeah.
There's no question, and he won't realize that until he really starts digging in. But
then he'll want to learn it too.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And then he'll be like, oh, it's just like me. Like, oh, why didn't I?
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool, down the road. And if you really understand these concepts, they can save you a lot of pain, later in life. So, we're super excited to be bringing something that encourages that and hopefully gets more kids, engaged.
Yeah. So as coaches, we're trying to walk our teachers and our students through the design thinking process. And it has changed my life. I went to Google Innovator in Sydney, Australia in 2019, and they did the design thinking process. And we had to come up with a project and not a solution. And so that was hard for me, just to think about like all of these different possible solutions, even the worst solution, and all these bad ideas, and then going through like a focus group. So what was your design process like?
It's funny because design thinking is, a process that's been, very, very come to the forefront a lot recently. but we've been doing this at All Things Media for 22 years. And when it first came out, I was like, oh, it's this new process. And I looked at it, I was like, that's what we've been doing all along, right? And I think that's kind of an understood tenet of design thinking. It's more a way of defining, kind of a process that's been around for centuries, right? And I think the way that we apply it here is, the core tenet of design thinking, to me at least, and I think in general, is the focus on the end user. The idea that we're not designing this for McGraw-Hill as much as we love working with McGraw-Hill. We're designing it for the sixth grader in the classroom that's having a hard time with math. And so every single time that we reach a crossroads in development, every single time that we have a question, we always come back to, is this going to help? Does it meet one of these criteria? Is it going to help the child understand the learning objective? Or is it going to encourage them to understand the learning objective? Is it going to be fun, right? Especially at that age, having, a seventh grader this whole year while we were developing, you always come back to, when you're ideating, like, would my kid think this is cool? Would this engage my kid? And so that's part of that initial empathy, which I think is really the cornerstone of design thinking, is the empathy part. But then from there, we did some focus group testing. We did some initial, around the original problems that we were trying to solve. And then when you move into kind of the planning process, there we really looked at all these possible solutions. It was really kind of an open, collaborative brainstorming session. And to your point, there was a lot of great ideas that maybe were too complicated or didn't make sense for this. And there's a lot of really bad ideas that we identified early on and got rid of. And then we rapid prototyped. We created the first one, which was cross sections. We saw it worked. We saw it didn't. And from there, we had tested it with some kids. We saw what they thought, and then went in and built that one. And our process is, as we go through, is following that design thinking process. We'll always do a full storyboard of everything that we do. And then with the storyboards, we'll go a little wonky. We'll make it a little bit more fun than we might even be able to do, like little animations and things that make it cool. And then, we'll look at that. And the storyboard is really more about getting the vibe that we're going for, the spirit of the activity, and as well as locking down the functional things for programming. And then from the sketch storyboard, we'll go into design mock-ups, and from the design mock-ups, we'll go into actual program prototype or kind of early alpha, and then we go into beta, and then we finalize. So.
And really, it's all about the vibe for kids, right? Like that's like key
word
for kids.
Nail it.
If you don't nail that,
and
then
it doesn't take a lot, right? It sometimes it does, but usually it's just the little things. Like, for example, we're doing one now, and this is a little preview of something that's not out yet. We only have 3 activities live. Previews. But so we're doing one on slope, and the slope one is going to be like a ski slope, where you're adjusting the rise and the run of the slope to see how it affects your slope angle. But it's a ski slope, and so while you're going, there's little skiers going down it, and you'll adjust it, and it'll get more challenging for them, or you make a thing, and they're going like more on a smooth surface. But then also you're looking at a cutaway of the side of the mountain. So as you extend the mountain up, you'll look in the rock and you'll see like little dinosaur bones and stuff like hidden in the mountain, So it's little things like, it's silly. It doesn't really add to the learning objective, but it adds to the fun and the discovery of it. And those are the types of things that we're trying to include to keep it interesting and fun and cool.
And it's interactive.
Yeah. Well, everything we're doing is fully interactive. And in augmented reality, which is kind of a cool technology. But what I found so interesting about using AR is, there's a lot of people out there trying to use AR just to use AR. And that's another kind of core part of this. That was a real challenge, I think, in the script and ideation process was, okay, we're trying to teach this concept. Does this make sense in augmented reality? What is the benefit of doing this in AR versus just having a 3D model on the screen without the augmented reality component? And that was kind of the last stumbling block we had to clear in these. It was like, we want to teach this. We can teach it this way. Does augmented reality provide a value here? And checking off all those boxes has definitely been a challenge, but once you do it, it's very rewarding. And I can, hat off to the McGraw-Hill team, to the script developer, Patrick, I'm just going to call him out by name, Patrick, has done a great job of taking, something that doesn't seem like it would fit into AR and finding the way to make that work while still keeping a really solid eye on the learning objectives and not just helping the kids to understand this, but helping them to understand it in a way that's going to help them, with the requirements down the road.
Yeah.
So what do you see like the future development? Where is this growing?
I think you're going to start seeing augmented reality everywhere. I think the only limitations right now in terms of augmented reality is the requirement to install an application. At some point, it's going to become web-based, where you can just hit a QR code and you jump right into an experience. I think that's coming, and also the fact that you're kind of limited to a phone or an iPad at this point. Once glasses come out and become ubiquitous, you're going to see those two checkpoints, those two checks are going to make it just blow up everywhere. You're going to see it everywhere. And I think it's not, right now we're doing mathematics, but I don't think that the applications of AR by any means are limited to mathematics. Think of the implications for science. Think of the implications for engineering. Like, there's so many different ways that this technology can be applied and really increase students' understanding. I think augmented reality is another type of learner, right? We've got learners that respond to video. We've got learners that respond to text and lectures. We're going to have learners that respond to augmented reality in much the same way. And I think this next generation is going to be far more likely to respond to augmented reality, to be those types of learners.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see it everywhere. And McGraw-Hill's really laying the foundation for that. The application that we've created, it's not just you install the application and that's it. It's actually a shell application that allows you to create new augmented reality experiences and deploy them into it without requiring an app update. So the library now has 3 activities. By fall semester, it'll jump, by another 3 or 4. By end of year, it'll be at 10. And then right now it's all mathematics, but the system's been built to allow for multiple disciplines and multiple different types of activities. And then, everything that we're building at the same time, as if that wasn't enough, everything that we're building has an eye on when glasses and augmented reality glasses become a thing. So everything that we're building, while it's just on the iPad and iPhone now, or iPad, iPhone, Android tablets and phones, while it's just there now, the system that we're using, everything that we're building, the underpinnings of it are designed to be portable to glasses-based AR as soon as that becomes a thing. So.
Crazy. All right, you probably talked our listeners into downloading this app. So how do they get this app, and what do they need to do?
Go to either the Google Play or Apple App Store and type in McGraw-Hill AR, and it'll be right there, free for download. Totally free. And in addition, while you can download the application and for free in either of the app stores, you can also, if you want an associated lesson plan for any of the activities that's in the application, go to verizon.com/learning, do a quick free registration, and you can find all of the activities and lesson plans in there as well.
Wow. Free is like keyword to teachers.
Totally free.
In schools, right? Like, not everybody has all the funding for all of this. So,
and the great thing about this too is it works on whatever device a student has. So even for districts that don't have school distributed mobile devices, the student can just download it on their own device. It's not a super heavy install. It's I think 10 or 15 megs. And the activities are super light, so any student can just download it and use it as they see fit.
So we had VR, and you needed the iPads, and you needed the goggle. There's so many different things that you needed, where it became an accessible. All of these different things came in as a barrier. And then we couldn't update the software because the iPads were so old. It was just one thing after another. So that's great.
Yeah, and there's a certain level of equity that comes into something like this, because there are classrooms that have a lot more physical materials to teach these concepts right in the classroom, but some classrooms don't. And so as long as the kid has a smartphone, which pretty much every kid these days does, they have the ability to have the same experience and the same level of quality as any school district that's out there, regardless of what the resources are.
That's amazing. I'm excited. I'm ready to go download it myself. Actually, I mean
By
my
all
son to
means,
download it.
do.
Yes. So make sure you add that app to your mobile device or whatever you're using, and give it a try and let us know how it goes. Rob, how can our listeners connect with you if they have questions or?
Oh, sure thing. You can check us out online at allthingsmedia.com, or you can email me at rob@allthingsmedia.com. Very happy, or info@allthingsmedia.com. So plenty of options there.
So if you have,
And
go ahead.
say
Go
it.
ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. So if you want to connect with Rob at all of those different places, we'll also put it in our show notes so you can grab those links and be able to reach out to him. Until next time, control the chaos.
Thanks for listening to Control the Chaos EDU. Check out the description for show notes.
We look forward to connecting with you on social media. Subscribe to the weekly podcast so you never miss an episode. Control the chaos. Until next time.